So hello everyone, my name is Sherif Luka and I'm a value engineering manager at Nakisa. Today I wanted to walk you through our workforce planning portfolio and particularly focusing on org chart as well as the org design product suites. The org chart suite enables you to visualize and analyze your HR data, which could be coming from different HRIS systems. You may have Workday, SAP, HCM, or SuccessFactors in the cloud. You may have Oracle, again, different flavors, PeopleSoft Fusion, or any other system where you maintain your HR data, including also offline reports, of course, which are also supported. Now, this includes the ability to visualize the org charts, reports, and dashboards and help you transform your raw data into insights and actions with these advanced analysis that you can do. On the org design product suite, this is divided into operational and strategic. The operational one is for managers and HR VPs to propose team changes. These are typically done at the micro level and really allowing that collaboration and speeding up the approvals of these transactions within these structures, maybe at a smaller scale. The strategic is more tailored for org design specialists and center of excellence team, typically centralized teams within organizations, or it could also be decentralized, but supporting that large scale transformations that you may go through, such as post-merger integrations, divestitures, reduction in force activities, or anything to do with spans and layers, depth optimizations to help optimize your structures. The workforce planning suite, I'm not going to cover in detail today, but again, it's divided into operational as well as strategic. Operational is more focusing on headcount and FTE planning and budgeting, which is, following your regular workforce planning cycles, typically 12 to 18 months. And then you have the strategic workforce planning, which is more longer term, again, giving it a guided end-to-end framework covering very concrete steps from current state assessment. We use something called the 5C lens, where you look at capacity, cost, capability, configuration, and composition, but also doing future state driver configuration, supply, demand, and market drivers, doing the gap analysis, and allowing you to simulate the different talent supply strategies using our framework, build, buy, borrow, or but as an example. Then, of course, helps you to execute and monitor these plans. The second layer of this architecture is the Nakisa Portfolio Wide Suite. And this is providing you with the Nakisa Copilot or our AI assistant, which is a step-by-step guidance, providing you any kind of answers to any queries you may have, which is very useful for onboarding. Nakisa Product Center, again, centralized access to documentation, training, support, etc. The third layer is the Nakisa HR Core, and this is consolidating data from different systems, HR, payroll, finance, talent, into one trusted source, which is critical for driving that data-informed decisions. So any kind of data that you need to help inform these organizational design and organizational or workforce planning decisions, then it will belong to that Nakisa HR Core layer. And last but not least is our Nakisa Open Cloud platform, which provides you with the security. We're SOC 1, SOC 2 compliant, but single sign-on, role-based permissions, seamless integration to the different ERPs, as I mentioned before, or any other third parties. We have microservices and event-driven architecture as well to support your different use cases and address your different challenges. When you first log on, you will be able to see the different structures based on what we have configured. That could be a position-to-position reporting lines, or it could also be a department structure or a company structure, depending on your data model and the HRIS systems that are in place. So in this example, we're looking at a position-to-position reporting line, and I can also see here support for matrix structure. So I can see VP of Saskia, VP of Strategy, Saskia Lenz. She has multiple managers. She's dotted line into the CEO, and I can see that's very clearly indicated here. But I also see that she has a solid line into Carla Pearson. So if I expand Carla's organization, I can see her record appearing as well here. So we do support these matrix structures. And of course, if you have any kind of shared positions, that will also be displayed here, where I can show or hide the incumbents that are sharing that position. If you have vacancies, that is also displayed directly in the chart. So one question probably comes to one mind. This is great, but what if I want additional information to be displayed here to support a different HR process? Well, we decided to not offer pre-configured views. We wanted to give that flexibility entirely to the user so that they can define whatever information they need. And that's why you can just go into the chart options and add whatever information that is relevant to the use case that you're in. So for example, you want to track your job architecture information to see what are the functional areas, what are the job families, what is the job that describes these positions. I can just simply add them here. If I am a manager and I'm going through my talent, let's say review and looking at performance review cycles, I can add performance potential or even tenure. I can add this information directly in the box. There's no restrictions. You have that full flexibility to add whatever information that is relevant for your use cases. Furthermore, you can add icons or badges as well. So in this example, I can look at pay grade. So any organization, let's say within grade 6, we will show that in green, executive tier 1, executive tier 2, more in different shades of blue. I can also add as many badges as you want, so you're not limited to one type of conditional formatting. You can have multiple different conditional formats based on the values of different fields, which could be very, very relevant if you want to track key positions, if you want to track people that have certain level of seniority or a high risk of loss. You can just simply tag them using these badges. So with that said, we've also introduced the ability to add what we call in-chart analytics, whether they are employee-related or position-related. Just give you a quick example of some of the in-chart analytics that we display in the box. So here you see total count in terms of head count. We can see the span of control as well as average span of control. We can see layers. We can see total target compensation. As well as total salaries and average salaries directly displayed within each box. So that's very, very useful. And of course, with the ability to filter these analytics, then you will be able to transform this data into valuable information. So by that, I mean, if let's say you are an HRBP and you want to track pending departures due to retirements, I can simply filter by age above 60, and I can see that this number will change from 1,452 to 196. So I clearly understand who are the employees that are about to retire from the organization. Of course, there's a lot of analytics displayed here, so I'm just going to go in and quickly remove some of the ones which are not relevant for my use case. Maybe just focus on headcount, span of control, and total salary. So here we know that there's 196 total employees that are above 60 years old that are directly and indirectly below Mark Johnson's organization. Notice also that you see this dimming that happens. So what this dimming is telling us is that Mark Johnson himself, as well as John Barry, as well as Marga, they are all not above 60 years old. However, they may have someone within their team, directly or indirectly, that is above 60. And that's why their records are dimmed, but of course the records below are not dimmed. So for example, here I know that Helly Carlson is above 60 as well as Mary Jonathan. So the question comes in, okay, now that we know we have 196, who are these individuals? Because maybe I want to track certain actions for them. Maybe when I look at succession information, are they sitting in key positions? What is the impact should they leave the organization? So I can analyze this further by opening that employee directory, which will allow me to drill down to everyone that is below the CEO that is above 60 years old. There's a lot of information that is tracked here. By the way, this is again full flexibility to the user to add whatever information they need. And if there's information that is missing here, they can just go to the data model and add them directly from the data model, such as, for example, department. If you want to just go ahead and add this, you can just simply define the report based on your needs. Of course, with that said, I can drill down to certain records within the organization. So let's say I see here one of the positions, Senior Manager CSO, Connie Bramer. I can go to her profile. She's based in Dubai. She reports into Mark Johnson, and she's above 60, so she's sitting in a key position. I can view further information about Connie's profile by going into her details. So I can see here position details as well as employment details. Under the position details, you have a lot of information related to the position. I also see the required skills and competencies for the position. So if you do have skills maintained, we can bring that in, both at the position details, but also at the employee details. So you can see the skills the employee occupies versus the position. Now, if you don't have skills, of course, they will not show up here. but this is just to show that the data model does support skill-based planning if you do have that. Going into other details, you can see compensation, employment details and other information as well. And of course, we can view the person in the org chart. So I can go from the org chart to the filtering, drilling down, as well as going to the profile pages, and from the profile page back to where the person sits in the organizational chart. So I can see that Connie is a senior manager under CSO. Okay. So with that said, I could also decide to filter certain information which could be not relevant for me. So oftentimes we work with organizations that have a large number of contractors, and maybe you don't want to see them in the chart, so you have the display options to hide them. Or maybe as part of your use case, you want to focus on the, let's say, focus on the manager positions only, and not the individual contributors. So for example, here, Mary Johnson's organization, she has a span of control of 21. There's a lot of individuals below. These are all individual contributors. If I want to hide them from the display, I can just simply do hide individual contributor positions. So that's very flexible. You can add as many things. Maybe I can also hide vacancies. Maybe just focus on, let's say, Dubai only. So hide everything else that is not in Dubai. And this will give me a very clear view on the type of structure that I want to support, that I want to look at. So with that said, I also wanted to maybe highlight another key feature, which are the dashboards. Now, dashboards really tell a story, especially when you want to look at unstructured data. So you can have position dashboards, you can have employee dashboards, you can have executive dashboards. Again, this is all configurable by the administrators as well as by your users. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a second. But here I'm looking at a specific dashboard which shows me the total headcount, total number of managers, the average tenure, average age, average salary, and average span of control, and a bunch of other graphs, including as well some employee maps here, which shows me the location of my employees. So we have 15 in London and we have 36 in Frankfurt as an example. The concept of the filter panel still exists here. So I can, of course, drill down into a specific location, and then this information will change based on the criteria of my selection. So we have 493 in Chicago, 37 of them are managers. So you have that, again, ability to slice and dice your data based on all of these filters that are fully flexible. And you can also add your own filter profiles to define specific use cases. I showed you an example of retirements. Maybe you want to track your top performers in the organization, so you'll have another filter profile, etc. So here, one thing comes to mind, which is how flexible are these dashboards? Meaning, what happens if I get a request from the leadership team to include additional type of graphs that are not available here? So in the standard pre-configured graphs, what do? We have two options. I can manually add these charts, and there is a bunch of charts that are available. Just to show you, you have different types of charts, including pivot tables as well, that you can add. You can also customize these the way you want to, in terms of layouts, colors, in terms of the different criteria that you want to add. But I'm going to show you maybe an easier way to create these graphs, and one of it is to use our dashboard AI agent. So let's take an example where you have a new D&I initiative where you want to track gender pay gaps within the organization, and you need to have a graph that supports that. You can simply, in plain language, you can write this in English, German, French, or any other language. You can say, I would like to track gender pay gaps, and you create a graph that shows the average salaries by pay grade and per gender. So you simply ask this in plain language, and there's a large language model behind that will interpret what you're asking and will go ahead and create that graph. Now, if you're not happy with this, so here is suggesting a pivot table. Maybe you didn't want a pivot table. Maybe you want another graph. So you can just simply say no, and then it will give you another option, the AI agent. So it will tell you what type of chart you want. Maybe I would like a bar chart instead that tracks the average salaries by pay grades and stacked by gender, as an example. So when you write that, of course, again, it will be processed and it will give you another option. It will tell you, okay, here's a bar chart. It's going to be average salaries by pay grade stacked by gender. You can, of course, change that later on. And if you're happy, just say yes. And then you will have the graph created directly in the tool. So you can see it here at the very bottom. Of course, if I zoom in, let me just quickly collapse the dashboard agent. I can see this is the average salaries by pay grade. So I can see that the executive tier pay grade average salaries of female employees is 89.75, whereas for male employees is 167.65K. Of course, I can, as I mentioned before, I can edit this manually and I can go to the customization options. I can change this to vertical. I can show data points, show access name. And of course, this will allow me to track this type of information directly here. And I can see that, for example, my female will be displayed in blue, my male will be in green, and any other non-specified gender would be in dark red. And I can see if there's any pay gaps very easily visually based on the size of these graphs. Of course, if you're not happy with that title, you can also change it, gender pay grade. Analysis. And here, average salaries. And then once you're satisfied, you can just go ahead and save it, and then it automatically be saved in your dashboard. Of course, this entire layout can also be modified by just modifying the layout of the page. So I can bring this one here. Maybe this is the one I want to focus on for my analysis. So I can just save that layout. So again, very powerful, an easy way to access and to create these graphs. So with that said, let's go back to the org chart. Of course, we're not going to be able to cover all of the capabilities because I also want to focus maybe on org design as well. And in this example, let's take a look at an operational org design use case where I want to, let's say, edit this specific chart to maybe optimize the span of control of the VP of Finance organization, which is 21, which is relatively high. So how would I go ahead and do that? First of all, if you're not so sure, you can ask the AI assistant. Simply ask the question, how can I create a proposal? And what that does is it will give you step-by-step guidance on the different steps you need to take in order for you to create this proposal. So it will tell you, for example, to start from the beginning, to create a proposal, enter the edit mode. I can see it here by clicking on the edit icon, and then you can start making changes, renaming the proposal, etc. And you have all of these documentations clearly linked as part of my Nakisa AI assistant, so I can always go back to it if I needed some further help. So let's do as the AI assistant is proposing. I'll go ahead and edit that structure. And again, I will collapse this branch here. And I will see that for the interest of time, I created a reorg and I called it Reorg 2025 Span of Control Optimization. Of course, using an inline editing, I can modify the title if I wanted to. So here we have a structure in edit mode. Edit mode is designed to support these types of transformations. As I mentioned in the introduction, this is for managers and HRBPs to propose changes to their team structure. So let's say I'm Mary Jonathan and I want to, let's say, optimize my spans and layers by creating a new position below the VP of Finance. I can go ahead and add this position here. I can see it. Sometimes you get this error message. If there's any data quality issues, you can always go back and find where the data quality issues are by going through the data quality console here, and that will give you that information. But nothing is preventing me from creating the structure. So I can call this one the billing manager as an example. I can say, okay, this is in Dubai. And I can also edit any type of information I need based on my requirements. I can take then Wayne Rose, Vionel, Catherine Polini, and then take them and drag them directly under the VP, under the billing manager position, which is recently created. And I can see the records automatically appear in the chart with clearly indicated as these were moved, whereas this one was a new position that I've added. Of course, we do support as well mass changes. So I can select multiple positions at once, and I can just do even things such as cut and paste. So yeah, I don't want to cut these ones. Actually, it doesn't matter because they're already as part of the VP of Billing Manager, and I can just paste them. So very easy, you can apply these changes using either drag and drop or cut and paste. So it's designed to support these use cases. If let's say you want to promote Wayne Rose to become the new billing manager, I can just simply type his name here. And this would then appear, and I can select it and then do save. So this is great for your talent selection process. Once you created a new position and you want to assign an incumbent, you can do that here. And of course, then this position may no longer be required. Either I need to rehire a new billing specialist position or simply say, okay, this is not required anymore, so I can delimit this position. Every single change you work on is included in this changes report. And if you made a mistake, let's say this appraisal position should have not been moved, I can undo that specific change, which will revert back this appraisal position to bring it back under the VP of Finance instead of being moved under the billing manager. So let's just do a couple of more changes. Let's move these appraisal positions. I will just again cut them, and I will just paste them directly here to finalize my the changes that I've worked on. So let's say now all these changes are great. I worked on it. Let's discuss it with our HRBP. So I'm going to add a participant, and here we have different types of participants. They can be collaborators, approvers, or deployers. Let's say as a collaborator, I can add and our HRBP, her name is Hilda Pearson. So I can go ahead and add her, and I can give her edit access. This is very important so that she can then see the changes that have been proposed and maybe apply further changes to it to make it more compliant to the HR processes that are in place. In addition, I can also add my approvals. By the way, you cannot submit a proposal until you have approvers that have been defined. So I can go ahead, and in this case, I will also add Hilda as my approver for this specific org design. If you also want, you can attach documentation. So if you have a process where you need to have sign off on documents, you can attach these documents directly as part of your proposal to make sure that everything stays in one place, also for compliance and for audit purposes and compliance purposes. You can start a discussion with one of the collaborators. So in this example, I'm going to discuss with Hilda. Can you please check the span of control of the VP Finance organization and apply further changes? So Hilda receives an email as well as the notification center, so she knows that there's work to be done. And when Hilda logs in, by the way, she doesn't have to go through the changes report to understand what happened. She doesn't need to go through the structure to understand what exactly went in or went on as part of that org design. She can even directly from the discussions ask the AI agent to explain these changes that happen. So we have also an AI agent which is smart enough to parse through the changes log report and then explain in plain language what are these changes for. So for example, it will say that, if you've created a new billing manager position, you've assigned some positions to it, as you can see here, and it will tell you clearly what really went in plain language. So that will also save you a lot of time and helps with streamlining this approval process and communication and collaboration between the different stakeholders. Okay. So you can see here clearly the summary that is generated by AI, indicating what really happened. Okay, so of course, if you need to discuss these changes with Mary Johnson following this, of course, you can use the discussions that you can collaborate within the tool, but oftentimes you may also want to export these structures, whether they are the baseline or the proposal that you're working on. So you have a very advanced export to PDF, which is of very high resolution that allows you to have this exported in PDF document, or you can use our advanced export, which is also very powerful. You can decide to hide the changes that happened or include the changes so they are clearly visible within the tool. I can also crop certain structures. So maybe if I want to focus only on this one, then that's the structure that I want to crop. I can also add different color coding. So maybe Eileen is going on maternity leave, so I can flag this as red and indicate that this is the case. If I'm not happy with certain orientation of the boxes on the screen, maybe these positions, I want to move them to the left-hand side here, and maybe these positions, I want to move them to the right-hand side, so I can actually modify the orientation of these boxes on the screen. It becomes very easy for you to generate the structures that you need before you export it into PowerPoint or into an image format. Okay, so with that said, let's go into the org design, an org design example, more strategic and less operational. But just because of the time, I'm going to maybe spend some time on some of the key features within strategic org design that differs from operational. And the first thing would be the ability to define very clear objectives, very clear descriptions of what you're trying to do with your strategic org design. Of course, once you've created it, it's created for the VP of Finance as well. I can load that specific org chart. I can perform the changes as we have seen in the operational. Works the same way. I can do drag and drop. I can do mass changes. But you could also, in addition to that, you can add tags, and these tags can be added ad hocly. So here I have critical roles. These are tags that I've added. I have some positions which are flagged if I zoom in with the RIF tag, so reduction in force tag. And let's say if I know, for example, Helga is going on maternity leave, but I don't have a way to define that in the box itself, I can create a tag on the fly where I can say, okay, this tag will be called, let's say, maternity. And I will flag this in green. So this will be my maternity tag. I can then add this person as going on maternity leave. So very powerful feature. And once you've done that, you can very easily track where everyone sits in the organization. So here, for example, if I want to focus on the only the positions that are flagged for reduction, I can go to my tagging and then focus on RIF, and then everything would be dimmed. It will show you exactly which positions have been flagged for a RIF action. The other thing is the ability to define targets as part of the org design becomes very important. And that's why if you switch the view from standard to employee analytics, here you will see a view that shows you for all of the KPIs and all of the in-chart analytics, what are the old values, so before the change. So when you've created the scenario, this was the baseline. And on the second column, you will see the new values. So within the VP of Finance, the headcount was 179. This organization went through a big reduction in force. It went down to 119. The total salary was around 12.8 million. It went down to 7.2 million. And you can see as well some information here that is tracked for every change that you worked on. As I mentioned before, defining targets are very important. In this example, I have a target on span of control that is between 5 and 9. And as I am within the target, it's showing as green. Let's say this example here, manager AP, the span of control target is also 5 to 9, but it's 19, so it's shown with an arrow pointing upwards and in red instead. And to define targets, it's as easy as going through the box itself and then going in and setting these targets, which can also be cascaded downwards. You can do the target on any of these in chart analytics, whether they are target budgets to represent the cost versus budget, target vacancies. So you don't want to you have an organization with not too many vacancies, you can define it as a target, or the example of the span of control as I gave earlier. You can define these targets directly here, and they could be different targets by function as well if you want to. Okay. So with that said, you could as well track the different changes. So I've shown you the dashboard as part of our org chart suite. The same dashboard capabilities exist for the org design, but we also have on top of that the ability to define what we call delta dashboards, and this is fully configurable based on your requirements and needs. In this example, I've configured 2 delta dashboards, one showing the change over time by headcount. So if I zoom in here, I can see that the total headcount by department, so in finance was 186 and now it's 125. And of course, if I go to the other one here, I can see it by cost, as I mentioned before. So the cost went as well from 13.6 million to 7.9 million. This is indicated clearly as part of these dashboards. So the main advantage here is that within the same dashboard, you see the original data set as well as the scenario data set, and not just having two separate dashboards that you have to visually compare. We bring that information as part of our Delta dashboards directly in here. And of course, we have the changes report that you've seen before, which I can also download and export into different formats. I can also visualize the different employees and positions in these directories. So with that said, this concludes the overview of our Nakisa Workforce Planning Portfolio. And as I mentioned, I just wanted to focus purely on the org charting as well as the org design capabilities. But we do also have workforce planning, and we'll be very happy to showcase that at maybe give you an overview on that for our next session. Thanks, everyone.